It's all right. You're safe. You're safe. We got you. We're here.
I'm on fire!
Okay. It's all right. You're not on fire.
I knew it! You're lying! I'm burned!
There is no fire.
Come back here.
But something looks wrong. I mean, he's running around like he's on fire.
Oh my God, help me! I don't want to die! Oh, stop, drop, and roll!
You're not on fire, Ricky Bobby.
I'm on fire!
You're not on fire.
But I'm not even sure he even knows where he's at right now.
This makes us all realize the kind of pressure these drivers are under.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I'm your host, Gus Manti, and we got our boy Rowan Stamm on, and this is an awesome interview. All of us fellas had a blast interviewing him. We chopped it up, whole bunch about fly fishing, a couple fly tactics, types of flies to use, talked a little bit about conventional fishing as well. And all the boys are on it, so hopefully everybody enjoys this one, and we're just going to roll with the interview right away. So here's the interview with Rowan Stamm. All right, everyone, we're here with Rowan Stamm of RHS Guide Service. Max and I were just able to get in the boat with Rowan. So we're having him here on the podcast tonight. So Rowan, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Cold and a little damp still from fishing today.
Yeah, I bet. I saw that you went out, you crazy man.
Yeah, fruitless again.
Yeah, what was it today? Like what were the temps and such?
Madison Chain was at 36 water temps and 36 air temps. So pretty even across the board there.
Not too bad.
Find 36.2 in one spot.
Are they all stacked in the warm water?
All stacked in the warm water.
Rowan, I saw you, since we're on Muskies on Tap here, I saw you just start hammering a bush light, but you also had like a cup going. So are you just kind of working a cocktail and the bush light there?
Yeah,
what are we working
I'm
with
working
here?
the maker's mark on the rocks in the coffee mug. And then then I've got about 3 bush lights sitting here next to me throughout the podcast.
That ain't bad right there. A little bit of sleep juice.
Yeah. Warm up.
No, I mean, that was like right when we got onto your boat on Saturday, you just had the bottle of makers there, and we're like, all right, a few nips to get the day going and start her out. So I wanted to kind of dive right into like, your setup. So I think one of the cool things when we got on the boat was just like your boat, honestly, and not used to fishing out of that type of rig. So you kind of just want to give the people a rundown on like what your guide service entails, what you're fishing out of, what you're kind of doing down there. Cause I think it's a pretty cool, unique gig you got.
Yeah, sure. So I'm running the rivers in kind of south central to southern Wisconsin, a little bit north occasionally. And to do that, you got to go through a lot of pretty skinny, nasty water with obstacles, as we found out when I ran into several logs. And so to do that, I've got a Alumnicraft 1860 prop tunnel hull with a jack plate and a 115 Yami. So then she gets up on plane real fast. I can crank that motor up into the tunnel hull and run real shallow.
Nice. So you kind of, I don't know if you'd classify yourself as like a river rat, but what kind of drew you to fishing rivers over like your typical just standalone lakes down there?
Well, growing up at the cabin in Hayward, we'd go out and fish the river a lot because that's where the cabin was. We'd go wade and throw twitch baits and behind rocks and catch muskies, and that was always intriguing, and you never saw anyone. So that's kind of the main draw, is it's really easy to get away from people, and that's pretty difficult to do in the rest of southern Wisconsin. It's a lot of high pressured fisheries.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I like the river game. It kind of opened up our eyes. Like we've talked on this podcast that we like we really enjoy when we do fish rivers, but we don't do it enough. So I had a good time kind of learning from you a little bit. And I mean, you're obviously a young guy, like you and Gus are around the same age. And I've talked to Gus about this, but like, being a younger guide, like has that like presented any challenges? What are you, 20? You said you're 23, turning 24 here next week or something like that?
Yep, 24 next week. And yeah, I mean, being new in muskie guiding is always going to be challenging, just drumming up business, especially post COVID when everything's kind of slowed down. But yeah, you get some looks from the older guard, they're like, who's this guy? What's he doing? He doesn't know anything. But
you've been doing it for a while though. I mean, when did you start guiding?
I started guiding in 2021.
Okay.
And but I've been muskie fishing since I was just a little feller.
A tyke.
But yeah, I caught my first one when I was 2.5.
Oh, Jesus.
How's that possible?
Yeah, on a Snoopy rod.
There you go.
Like the strongest kid alive.
Yeah.
I think the exact words were, Dad, I got one.
Yeah.
Was it a behemoth?
Yeah, a whopping 32 inches.
So we were fortunate enough to come down and do some fishing with you. Gus, you've got to spend an extra day, so I guess I'll open it up to you and Rowan. How to go this weekend. Obviously, like you said, a little unfruitful, but really interesting type of fishing. I mean, we were seeing bait everywhere, thought we were hitting really good spots, and it just felt like, for whatever reason, I mean, Rowan, you were talking that these muskies, either it seems like they're fired up or they're just completely shut off, and kind of pick your day on what's happening on the rivers. But I guess we can kind of just go into the weekend on, how your guys' journey was after I left.
Yeah. It was tough, really tough. We had a booming, a really bumper crop of shad this year on the lower Wisconsin River. And it made the fishing tough for most of the fall and late summer. And Gus and I showed up to about 10 million of them dead on the boat ramp. So
Yeah.
that was probably a large factor for why the muskies weren't cooperating, just laying there with their mouth open, engulfing shad. But yeah, it was something else to see. About 10 million seagulls with the 10 million shad.
Yeah, it seemed like everything was pretty much just full. Nothing really wanted to cooperate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I definitely feel that for this late in the year. I mean, we're working with water temps of what was it, 33 or something like that?
33. I got 30. Yeah. I think we hit 34 and I said, bust out the bucktails.
Right. Yeah. Get the IC7 going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What typically dictates the shad levels each year?
I think it's just on a swing. There's gonna be years where they're not very numerous, and then there's gonna be years where there are a million of them. And this year it was crazy. I mean, a good buddy of mine who Gus talked to this past week had a really tough smallmouth season because the smallmouth were well fed. Everyone they caught would puke up like 20 shad in the boat.
Are they not really looking at suckers if you're sucker fishing? Are they just engulfing shad only, or what's it look like in the fall?
I'm not the biggest sucker fisherman, but they probably would look at them. But I think with that many shad in the water, I don't think they're going to look at anything but a dead shad.
It's crazy.
With the shad, I saw that well, first I've never fished the Wisconsin River actually that far south and really kind of anywhere on it. And I didn't, honestly, it shows my what I really don't know. I didn't know it had shad, so I was kind of surprised seeing that. And they're not that big, right? If you want to tell everyone about how big they are.
I'm not even sure the exact species of shad that they are, but they're definitely not like the thread fins or gizzards that are like 15 inches long. They're like, few inches, maybe 6 inches long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that makes it even tougher because that size profile is really hard to cover ground with. Because I'm sure you could fish some kind of little glide bait or a husky jerk or something and maybe get them to go. But I just hate to cover a enormous river like the lower Wisconsin with a tiny bait like that.
Yeah, and the fact that it does also have suckers and also all of the normal game fish and all the rough fish, which you said you've seen muskies down there pooping out carp scales and all that stuff. So they eat big.
Carp scales the size of a quarter too, not little ones.
Oh, Jesus.
You're not throwing big enough baits, everybody.
You could not throw a big enough bait. I was telling Gus on Sunday that we had a muskie on the Wisconsin River one year eat a 38-inch northern off our line.
Oh my God. We thought our monster swimming dog was big. We need to get size up.
Yeah. I had one go on the Ultra Dog today.
Ooh. What did it hit out in the cast or what?
Yeah, way out on the cast. I let it sink all the way to the bottom and gave it about one pop, and then my line just went slack.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, pretty typical late fall rubber eat. Got about one head shake out of her after I reeled down to it and then pulled back a bait with a shredded noggin.
Oh man. And that's tough after, the few days that we just had of no sightings because they weren't really even showing themselves either. Maybe on side image, but
yeah, a couple side imaging follows, but even those were pretty Sasquatchy.
Yeah.
So you obviously do some fly fishing and conventional. Is your guide trips, would you say like mostly fly fishing oriented, or is it kind of 50-50? What's the typical split on your season for clients and all that stuff?
I started out 100% fly fishing, and I wouldn't say 100%. 95. We'd get guys who come in the boat and we're just woefully unprepared to fly fish for 8 hours, and I'd have a gear rod there in case they got discouraged. But no, I've been trying to switch over to doing more gear fishing just because I've been having a blast doing it on the river, and it's really incredibly effective for fish that haven't seen that many gear baits. And so I'm trying to get into that a little bit more, but it's been more successful this past season getting some gear clients in the boat.
And so like what's a typical lineup then for going after these river fish with gear? Because I mean, obviously the fly, like it really kind of presents its own deal with how you obviously, slow moving it is and kind of the action on it. Are you trying to use baits that are replicating of the fly, or is it just kind of your typical lineup of stuff, or what do you have in clients, usually throw out on the river?
Definitely kind of trying to mimic the fly. Lots of twitch baits, glide baits, suics, stuff like that you can pause and keep above all the snags that we were finding the entire weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, bucktails and rubber are also incredibly effective.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I thought was crazy, sorry to kind of butt in, but like when we were starting out and you're like, don't be afraid to literally like in your figure eight, just pause the bait 10 full seconds.
Yeah.
Like they will come up and eat it, because you have the current, your bait's still kind of doing stuff. And you were like, yeah, just leave it there. Like you'd be surprised how many fish will just come up and like, what was that one day you were saying, like you were throwing your fly and they were really going and like, you just pause it like for 10 seconds by the bow. You just start like laughing to yourself because you just knew eventually one of them was just going to come out of nowhere. And
every couple casts. I mean, they would come out of the water and miss the bait and, swing at them like 2 feet away from it. And I was just, every time I'd pause my fly, I'd start uncontrollably giggling because it was just like, oh, here he comes. Here he comes.
Where the hell was this? What time of year? What were the conditions?
Yeah, right. The same exact conditions that we were fishing in this weekend in the same exact spot without seeing anything this past weekend.
Damn.
That was wild.
Muskies be muskying.
So Rowan, you got me on the fly rod as well because I'm kind of looking into getting one and trying it on the lakes up here and, maybe potentially getting on some rivers myself. And I thought those, well, first, your the big glide bait I used that you tied up, that thing was sweet. That thing literally went side to side perfectly, and it wasn't even like that hard to use, which, I was surprised. I thought I'd like really, really be struggling there, but that other technique, that like bottom dragging, that was super cool. I don't know if you want to explain to the people what that is, or like how you like to use that, or maybe when you like to use that technique.
Yeah, so it's a pretty old school fly fishing technique. Brad Bowen is the one who invented that fly, the river pig, and it's just a big musky jig. It's got a lead dumbbell eyes or aluminum dumbbell eyes. The original ones were aluminum. I like using lead just to get them down a little faster.
Mhm.
And yeah, you quarter it behind the boat, so we're always moving downstream. So you'll throw it 45 degrees up behind the boat, let it sink for a couple seconds, and the whole goal is to just keep it moving at a slow, steady pace just above the bottom. You don't necessarily want to be dragging it on the bottom because you're just going to get snagged, and you want to keep it slightly above the fish. But then every time you tick anything on the bottom, you want to give it a big hop. And usually right after that hop, they're going to eat it. Or when you get to the boat, you do a big deep figure eight, and they're going to eat it in that first corner. And it's really fun because you can't see the fly the entire time. So the eats away from the boat are pretty exciting because it just goes tight.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the boat side eats are awesome because your fly comes into view and the fish just comes out at 100 miles an hour and murders it.
Yeah.
So are you using full sinking line for that? Like how deep are you letting that thing get down?
I like kind of a medium sinking line for that. Like a sink 3 or 4, depending on the river. There's some stuff that we do where we're in like 25, 30 feet of water fishing these big shelves, and I'll use something more like a 5, 6, even like an 8 or a 10 for that. But no, I kind of want it to just be floaty right above the bottom, not on the bottom and getting snagged where your line's dragging on the bottom, but couple inches above, right in the fish's face, and then making contact with any little rock or stick that sticks up. And usually, yeah, you make contact with that structure, give it a pop, and that's when they go.
Yeah, it was a slow technique, but I was captivated by it. I was really enjoying doing that. I was thinking to myself at any moment it could happen. I mean, obviously, like the days are shorter. I probably really was only doing it for like 3, 4 hours, and it can't always just happen in that short of time, especially,
Yeah.
fly fishing for these freaking things. It's got to be a little bit more of a challenge sometimes, but also it works really well. And what I want to know about that technique is, I don't think I don't even know if I asked you this in the boat, but when do you start using that, or do you like to use that in the spring and summer, or is that
So,
just strictly fall?
I like it in the spring, especially if we get a cold spring. Any of those kind of cold front days in May and June, May in southern Wisconsin, June in northern Wisconsin, it can be deadly for sure. And then the other time that I use that is in the middle of the summer when the fish are really far down and fast current. And I'm going to fish them more aggressively that time of year, give them more hops and pop it a little bit more. But it does the same thing, gets it down to those fish. Really, anytime that you think that the fish are holding near the bottom in a river, I don't have any luck with them on lakes.
Okay, interesting. I wonder if
I
that,
think it would work, but I just haven't found
yeah,
a tool that is
I wonder if it just
effective.
needs to be like a, I mean, maybe, I mean, sometimes cold fronts here and in the summer, fish absolutely fire up and you can catch them on bucktails, but there's definitely days where they're in funks. I found them in
Yeah,
pretty big time funks here in the lakes on bizarre weather patterns. I feel like that could be effective, especially that the river pig you said, or
yep,
yeah, it kind of hops a little bit depending on the
yep,
weight you have. Yeah. Yeah, that could
yeah.
be a good trigger.
I was also thinking like early spring when they're in the spawning areas and you can sight fish
Mhm.
them. I've
Mhm.
thought about doing it on the Madison chain a lot because we'll get those like big weed flats with the dark emergent vegetation and a muskie sitting on it, and you can straight up see them. The water's clear, and that would be. I think it would work. I haven't tried it yet, but I think that would be a legitimate tactic to try.
Yeah, And another thing with the fly that you pointed out is that well, not only are they silent moving through the water, but they're silent when they hit the water. And
Yep.
you said that that might not spook those river fish because we're fishing, some skinny areas up against logs where like you're trying to hit the fly like right on them because the fish are typically on the banks, sometimes or more times than not. But
Yeah. The rule of thumb is if the water's high, they're on the banks. If the water's low, they're in the middle of the river.
okay.
But yeah, no, I do think that there's times when that like a pounder hitting the water is going to make them wake from 20 feet away and smash it, and then there's also times where it's like that's going to scare the shit out of them.
Right.
So it is nice to just be a little stealthy sometime.
Would you say too, like when you're fly fishing, is there any like if you notice any distinct differences on like how these fish will follow in on a fly compared to like a conventional lure? Like, are
Yeah,
you
they do it
having
a
to?
lot more. They
Okay,
love following flies. It's just like nonstop some days, especially in the springtime. It's just like sometimes you can't beat them off those things. They won't eat them, but they'll be on them just all day long.
are you like doing any maneuvers to get them to go boat side that are different than a conventional like figure eight?
One that my buddy actually told me about this year, it's kind of the same maneuver as I was having you guys do on the river this weekend with the 10-second pause boat side. But with a fly, because they're neutrally buoyant, at least some of them, you can pause them like 10 feet away from the boat. And on the Madison chain this spring, when the water was really clear, that was effective. It was kind of crazy how, because they kept coming in late. And you get into your first turn of the 8 and you'd have a super hot fish on, and it might go around the 8 once or twice, but then it would just leave because you're in 4 foot of gin clear water.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out pausing it 20 feet from the boat kind of got them to go. Yeah, that long pause with a little double twitch afterwards. Long pauses are really the key with fly fishing. Because it does it so well. If you can stop that fly and let it just hover in the current and let all those natural materials move, that's a really good opportunity for those fish to kill them.
Yeah, that technique sounds like something that I want to use with the potential fly rod that I'll get, because that brings me to thought on our early season here when we were struggling a little bit, and we started hitting a little cleaner water, and we were getting super late follows, but we were getting tons of follows, and we were doing a full figure 8, and then they'd show up or something. And I figured we were maybe just not doing the right maneuver because we weren't going to get him in the 8 out there. It was too clear.
Yep.
It's tough to get him in the 8 when the water's that clean. But yeah, that's just something that I'm definitely going to use. I'm probably going to be sending you a message this spring, like, you got any of those glide baits or river flies or something like that I can purchase, because those things are sweet.
I was
And I mean,
thinking,
like, you could probably do it with a Suic or something too. Death pause it 20 feet from the boat. I know my buddy Dara and I were doing that a lot on the chip off flowage this year. Stop a Suic or a Vexer 20 feet from the boat and just kind of wiggle it just under the surface and give it a big hard rip. That was another good trigger. I'm always trying to get them to eat before they get to the boat. You don't want them to eat at the boat.
Especially with the pull pause baits.
Yeah. Yep. It's super tough to get them in the figure 8 with that kind of stuff.
So if you're just conventional fishing and you get like a couple active fish into the 8, do you keep a fly ready to cast back at it? Like, have you had any success doing that?
I've had some pretty decent success doing that. Not so much this year. They kind of have vanished. My normal program is if I get them to move on like a Suic or a twitch bait or something mid column or surface, I'm going to throw one of those river pigs back right where I last saw it and let it sink to the bottom. And I've had really good success catching cast back fish with those. But I can't say that I've had a ton of success just like throwing another mid column fly. You move one on a pull pause bait and then just throw a glide fly back in their face, it probably aren't going to eat it. But if you drastically change the tactic, for sure, a viable technique.
Is there any such thing as a musky topwater fly?
Yeah, Limited success. We talked to the Lake X boys about it because we have had such a hard time hooking fish on top waters. Because to make it a fly, it's got to be damn near weightless so you can cast it. And they displace them. They hit it, and the fly rolls right out of their mouth. And you notice with all those musky top waters, they weigh a ton. You can cast them a mile.
Right.
And that's what makes them actually eat them. So we basically have big poppers, and muskies eat them, but it's not my favorite. It's really awesome to watch them blow them up 100 times, but you catch like 1 out of 20.
Yeah.
Leave it to Brian to ask if there's a top water fly.
I mean, that'd probably be the coolest way to catch a muskie.
It's pretty awesome. If you can get them on the way that I've got them on topwater flies is waking it like a flap tail. So I'll stick my fly rod under my armpit and then just pull the line in with 2 hands really, really slow. And it just kind of gurgles and wakes across the surface. And then I've gotten some more committal eats with that, but they're not always going to eat that.
Yeah. Huh. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you have like a time of year for that? Like your favorite month to do that in the river?
Yeah, probably like July, August.
Okay.
That midsummer, typical topwater. September too, obviously when everyone else is throwing topwaters. But we always I was talking to a friend this year and he's like, the only thing we can get them on is topwaters and river pigs. It was either on the bottom or on the top. They wouldn't eat anything mid column. And that was mid-July.
They're probably out eating all the coots.
Yeah. Right.
Weren't you saying like when we were on the boat on Saturday that you was it like a study or something that like if like they wanted to eat, they will eat, and if they don't eat, like they did it on purpose, like if they go after
Oh yeah.
It was the Ugly Pike podcast, I believe. I could be wrong, but they did a study where they did all sorts of kind of messed up things to muskies, like blinded them and stuff, and fed them in like complete dark. And they found that they were like another completely made up statistic. I could be off on this, but they were like 96% effective in eating something, which makes them like one of the most effective predators on the face of the planet. Like lions and tigers and whatever, they don't kill 96% of the things they try and eat.
I found that astonishing because I'm like how is that real? Because think about how many times you've had a muskie like come in and try to eat, and it's like, so I mean, what are they doing? Like, are they just messing with you? Or are they just like kind of figuring out what's going on?
Oh, they're messing.
I've got theories. I mean, I think that they're like, you kind of tricked them. Like you got a fish that's really not hungry and doesn't really want to eat, and they just kind of take a lazy swing at it because you got a reaction strike out of them. And then I've got the like aggression theory where it's like that fish is territorial and it's not actually trying to eat it. It's just trying to scare the hell out of it and get it out of its face. Because we do get a lot of those eats where they just completely miss on huge glide flies when you're stripping them super fast and get it right in their face and they just blow up on it as soon as it touches the water. And I've always kind of thought that it's like, get out of here, leave. I don't want you in my area.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I was doing a little research today because I was kind of like looking around on that theory, like trying to see if there's any more literature on it. And I kind of stumbled across this article. I'll feel bad because I won't be able to remember who wrote it. So sorry for not giving you credit. But they were talking about how like muskies, like, any animal like a dog or a cat, they have like legit personalities. Like not every muskie is created equal. They don't all, act the same way.
That's wild.
So like they were talking about how just as like, some cats are more playful or a dog is more obedient, there's some muskies that are literally have like personalities. And like I can kind of think back to like certain fish that have, behaved in weird ways, like not to think that muskies are, they got these like cognitive human elements, but definitely have thought about fish that are like way more pissed off, or fish that are a little bit more, just playful or whatever,
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if that's like part of it too,
Yeah. I can
Like,
see it.
Wait,
Yeah.
so I want to go back to that experiment these guys ran. What more do you know about that? How does that
I
work?
Yeah, I'm not totally positive the logistics on that experiment.
Was this
It
on
was
their pod they talked about it?
Yeah, it was Ugly Pike podcast. I'm 99% sure of that. They were researching what colors that they liked the best and whether they hunted with their lateral line or eyesight and all this stuff. And they found that they were basically just like didn't matter if they had their eyesight, didn't matter if they had their lateral line, didn't matter if it was complete darkness, murky water. They could always find what they wanted to eat. And red, orange, and yellow were the best colors.
I mean, that checks out. You know, I was like, I went down this rabbit hole today too, because it was like just all these things. And I stumbled back on that Jordan Weeks study when he put all those tags and different fishes on the Manitouist chain and then followed them. Have you read up on that at all or listened to his seminar
No,
on it?
no, I didn't even know about that.
Oh, dude, you got to go and check it out. It's one of the most fascinating things. He pretty much, Gus, correct me if I'm or fill in any blanks here because again, I don't want to screw it up, but like he, pretty much planted chips into muskies and would go out on the water every day and not fish. And just literally, like, he had a device that would, if he got close enough to the fish, the device would beep. And so he knew, what fish that was, with like the signal that it would give off on his device. And so, like, he was able to actually track if these fish move from different lakes on the Manitouist chain and kind of how, like, their movements or whatever. And if they were caught and tagged and recorded, he found that actually fish like that, they would set up shop in an area. And in the summer months, relatively, most of them would stay put unless that they were caught. Then they would they would leave, they'd vacate the area.
Interesting.
They were moody, like they were like pissed off that they were caught. Like, I'm associating this area with like a negative
Danger.
experience.
Yeah.
So they would move and then set up shop somewhere else. And some fish, live their entire, like, they learned that some fish live their entire life almost exclusively in the open water and will only come up into the shallows like every once in a blue moon. Like, he talked
Like
about
the
this
spawn,
one fish.
pretty much.
There's like this one fish that only moved into a certain weed bed on an east wind, and it was like a big fish. And then 99% of the other time its life, it just lived out in the open water and roamed the basin.
Yep. There's definitely fish that do that in Madison. You only see them in the springtime when they're spawning. It's like, man, where was that thing the rest of the season?
Yeah.
His study makes me just think that, like, you think like the Eagle River chain, super high pressure. Like, if fish are that good at associating, a spot where they were caught with like danger and they vacate the area, I think we just got to start hitting like the worst looking spots ever, assuming that fish go and chill there because nobody fishes it.
Seriously.
There might be some merit in that.
I think the first fish that was put in the boat this year in the Eagle River chain, Dad caught it on the first Tuesday night league, and we straight up caught it in a spot I have never tossed a lure in ever. And I've never heard anybody talk about it. And I think I just told like Jeremy or something. He's like, "Really? You caught one there?" I'm like, "I don't know. There's some weeds over there. It's kind of a tiny little spot. I'm gonna go back and hit it again." I actually never hit it the rest of the year, but I don't know why. It was a tiny fish. It was so small, it did not count in league, so it was sub 30. But I could see a big one holding in that every once in a while.
Yeah,
Max,
I was telling you guys that Tonka this year, Dara mentioned to me that he likes fishing high traffic boating areas because no one muskie fishes there, and they're churning up the water and stirring up fish. And I've definitely had that happen on the chain. I had one eat in someone else's prop wash one day. I was so mad at him for running over my bait, and then a fish loaded up.
Yep, that happens here on the Eagle River chain all the time. I mean, definitely there's community spots, there's high traffic spots, and they're going to be good every year. But yeah, there's a few that are like, why the hell am I fishing here? But they're there,
Yep. And no one else wants to fish there.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, everybody only wants to fish those at like first light or last light, but definitely good in the middle of the day.
3 o'clock in the afternoon, bunch of pontoon boats and jet skiers. It's on.
What a dream.
Sign me up.
Max, was that study also the one that he talks about or showed that muskie move like a crazy amount in October? Like
I
leading
think that
into
was
turnover?
a
Maybe.
different one that they talked about. Like they classified the certain months where fish roam the most.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
know Gus probably. I think
there
Gus
was
looked
a
at that one more than
there
I
was
did.
an old one. There was like an actual there was like a researched peer reviewed article posted, with all the citations and everything from oh I'd I'd have to really look it up, but it's old. Like it's from well before 2000, and I think like a lot of the fish that they tracked ended up dying because the electronics that they had to track these fish just weren't like as small as they are now or what they can do now, like pit tagging and all that. But yeah, it was like crazy how much they moved in the spring and fall. Like fish would just be, they would move all the time. Whereas the summer they'd kind of stay put, kind of move, and then the winter, like it was like they just wouldn't roam more than like an acre or something like that. But
Yeah,
the spring and fall, they're on the
anecdotal
move.
anecdotal evidence of that. We've got a river that we fish all the time that they are absolutely vacant in the summer. You cannot find a fish to save your life. And then all of a sudden, October, November rolls around and they all show up. And then we had a buddy, Max tried to pick up a rod from him at Thornbros the other day, but he
Whoops.
saw muskies just on the move. He was sitting there in like 3 feet of water and they were just swimming up the shore. And you'd throw baits at them, they wouldn't do anything. And they fins out of the water, swimming up the shore, just cooking. And then sure enough, you
Dang.
go back the next day and there's no muskies in that spot.
Yeah, that's wild. That's one thing I've thought about. I'll just bring it back to the Eagle River chain because it's just something easy to talk about, and I'm sure it happens in every single chain and every river system. But like, it seems like they for sure go through the channels here. But like, I hear about when some certain lakes in the chain are on or not. I wonder if like that particular spring, like a bunch of big fish or a bunch of fish went through channels, they ended up in that lake. It became summer, then that was their home for this year. And then all of a sudden that lake popped off because there's X number more in that lake than 2022. And I could totally see that because there was definitely time just from being in league and finding out, how many fish get caught and you get to know which lake they're caught on that, there's some lakes that were just in Fuego 2 years ago and there's been like two caught on it the last 2 years. So sometimes I don't understand that part, but
I'm always like the most fascinated with where big fish kind of set up shop, that the ones that don't just roam the basin and then will like randomly just kind of set up shop in like a certain area of the lake. Like I think back to Gus and Rowan, I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts on this when it relates to river stuff, if you've seen this. But like, for example, we've fished the Eagle River chain for I don't know, 15 plus years now. And this one particular spot, like we had never seen a giant fish there, and fished it. I don't even know, like countless and countless times. And then one summer, the summer where, Gus did well in the one of the
Alliance tournament.
Alliance tournament, the World Muskie Championship. We were fishing there in like the end of June, and my dad had a pike on and shakes off the pike at the boat. And the second the pike hit the water, mid 40s muskie, thicker than a Snickers, comes up and just T-bones the pike like at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And we were like, we've never seen a fish that size set up in this spot. And you would not think it's like your quintessential big
No,
fish area.
feels
And
like a
so,
small fish spot.
yeah, it feels like a numbers kind of like, what do you call them, Gus? The baby or kindergarten, whatever.
Oh,
nursery.
the nursery. Yep.
Yeah, nursery for small fish. And so, we went back to that spot during the Alliance tournament because we were thinking, man, could load up on a few smaller fish. It was like our first morning and I'm throwing a top water and boom, there she is, just waking behind this thing, and right on the waypoint of where we saw this fish eat this pike, doesn't eat that day. And we go there 2 mornings later, and Gus pops that fish. Like literally that fish did not move for 2 months because that tournament was at the end of August. So we saw it in the middle of June, Father's Day weekend in June, and then caught it 2 months later, like within the same
10 yards,
10, 15 yards.
Yeah,
radius.
it was like right on it, casting the same direction and everything.
And I know that you talked about a fish that you pretty much named on the stretch of river that we fished. And you were like, oh, it sits like right on this rock corner.
Yeah. She might have moved this year, but for the past 5 years that fish hasn't gone anywhere.
What?
It's hilarious. I mean, I used to make a joke. I'd text my friend like, "She's still there. I just side imaged her when I drove up." Yeah, we've caught her 3 times now. It's hilarious. I mean, and we had another big one on another one of my favorite stretches of river that we moved and then came back the next day and hooked, and then I can't confirm that it was the same fish, but a year later, same spot, same time of year, another low 50s fish comes out of the exact same corner of the river. So it's weird how they do that, and you got to think, like, was it there the entire time, or did it like go somewhere else and come back only at this time? But yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, that to me would be like, if you could try to put the pieces of it all together, like figuring out, if how and when these big fish set up and why they do it, and then like it would be impossible, but obviously like just kind of trying to understand that a little better, because obviously the goal is to catch, muskies, but to catch big fish. So it's like, if you could learn, what makes a big fish want to set up in a certain spot and just kind of be able to like identify those areas. But I don't know if there's a method to the madness at all.
I don't know if there is either. It seems like they do whatever they want. That's kind of like another one of our theories, is that like they're the apex predator and they can do whatever they want. That's kind of our theory behind why you catch big fish in Hayward on really terrible conditions. Like it can be like sunny and calm and 80 degrees in the middle of the day, and you catch the biggest fish you've ever seen, or see the biggest fish you've ever seen. It's because that fish can do that. The 32 incher is afraid of getting eaten by an eagle or something, but a 52 doesn't care. It can go swim around whenever it wants and do whatever the hell it wants.
Yeah, I got something super random pop in my mind, but this is a random question, Rowan, and I'm going to need an answer for a river and a lake. If you came back to this earth as a muskie and you were the biggest muskie, where would you sit on a river and on a lake? Where's your best spot?
Can we open this up? Can we open this up?
Oh, yeah. That's why I asked it. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, if I was a enormous 55-inch muskie on a lake, I would set up on a huge reef in the middle of the lake that just drops off into like 25 feet of water, 30 feet of water. And I'd sit right on that shelf and just kill Cisco's all the time.
And only at night?
Yeah, only at night when it's like terrible out, snowing and like 32 degrees. Yeah, that's what I would do. And I would just miss baits all the time.
Just back at him.
Mouth closed.
I'd go around the 8 like 50 times and just take slams on every corner, but never eat it.
Just keep charging up on it.
Yep. If I was a muskie on a river, I would live in a slough that no one can get to. Like just like some ridiculous place that you'd never think. You'd look at it on a map and be like, I can't get my boat back there.
Maybe leave your tail out of the water though, so that they know you're back there.
Yeah,
but they can't get to it.
Yep. Yeah, or just like kill a duck when you drive by.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Brian, I got to hear your answer, even though I think I already know.
Well, my answer. What do the other people in this call know that I'm a 60-inch muskie?
Yeah, you ain't a 60-inch.
Dude,
muskie,
there ain't no way.
You said the biggest muskie.
If you were a muskie, you'd be
I mean, are y'all gonna be coming after me? That's what I need to know.
You were a muskie, you'd be like a 43-inch, blind in one eye, lanky, skinny little thing that couldn't find a meal. That's what you'd be if you were a muskie.
All right, now we're just changing the question.
My bad. I'll step off.
Well, if y'all are trying to track me down, you got my number. I'll be about 60 feet down in an 80-foot hole.
No way.
No, that's not. No.
Yeah.
No way. You'd be
You won't survive.
You'd be sitting by a bunch of stumps in the back of bay on the most predictable muskie spot, and you'd eat a 500 booker tail.
I'd be under a boat. I'd be under a boat lift, taking night crawlers from the kids.
You'd be caught
maybe
16
the family
times.
dog.
Caught 16 plus times.
Yeah, I'd like to change my answer. I'd actually live in the marina.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Of the most popular resort on the lake.
Mm-hmm. And just make memories for people over and over again.
I'd steal little kids' rods out of their hand while they're catching bluegills.
Nobody'd be swimming there after a while.
Yeah. You're kind of stealing my answer.
Kids.
I would live like if I was a muskie, I would definitely be by a boat ramp.
Yep.
Not a marina, but a boat ramp.
It's good to
Boat
know.
ramp muskie.
Because I think then people would call me like, you know, they'd give me a name and stuff. Everyone would know me, you know.
You'd get caught?
Yeah, I'd probably get caught.
You're just being honest with yourself there.
And I'd be a
There's some good looking baits out there, no doubt.
I'd be a husky muskie.
Husky
I'd
muskie.
I'd get caught. But I'd be living at the boat ramp. Everyone that drops their boat in would be like, there's a fish right here. And I'd be like, yes, sir.
Gus, what about you?
Oh man, I've been that's tough. You guys took a lot of good answers that I probably was going to use, especially the resort muskie. That's got to be the best one. Or probably just some thick weeds. Just go in there and sit and don't move.
Out milfoil.
Yeah, something that nobody can cast into, and hope that nobody plows through that or takes them out, because that would be my home.
So you don't want to be caught.
No. Those are the muskies that do not want to be caught, and they can just chow on bluegills 24/7.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question to the room?
Sure.
So now that we're putting ourselves into the mind of a muskie, if you guys are a muskie, what lure do you think would trick you into eating?
A husky jerk, a walleye size husky jerk.
A little snicky snack.
A little snaky snack. I always like potato chip.
Hey, yeah.
That's interesting. Trying to correlate it to like my favorite meal or food. If it's like
exactly
a big meal or a snack.
I already know Max's answer. I'm gonna let him say it, but I already know what it is.
Try to speak for me. So what do you got?
Your little sus tube, you like?
Oh, come on!
Oh, Wonder Bread.
That ain't right.
Hey, yo, that's the Wonder Bread tube's the one that I throw.
Oh, okay.
Max got
cruel.
Max got the pink and orange tail tube.
Why do you think I'd like tubes, Brian?
I don't know. It's just part of your appetite, dog.
Say it with your chest.
Personal.
Glizzy gobbler.
All right, Brian, what do you got?
There he is. Me, well, because we got onto that note, I got to change my answer now. I was going to say a weagle, but I don't know about that.
Oh, man.
Shoot. Probably beaver. Probably beaver for being real.
For being real?
Yeah, probably beaver.
I'm glad we're being real here. I don't know, whatever bait dumb muskies eat.
This is hilarious.
I think Brian would get caught on the same goddamn bucktail that he'd eat 16 different times. I'm convinced on that.
500 booker.
Yeah. If you lived on the chain, you wouldn't make it past 37 inches. You'd be laying on some pontoon boat, in front of some pontoon boat, just flopping around while everyone's taking pictures of you.
Oh, I'd look like I just got out of the trenches after summer.
Yeah, for sure. You'd be getting caught by every Tom, Dick, and Harry in Eagle River. All right, I don't really know where we go from here, but that was fun to like do a little role playing.
Yeah, I
life.
didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted to make about on that. I was just, it came, the thought went across my mind, and I just wanted to ask it. So it's funny that we had a little tangent there. Should we get back to just maybe how to catch these things, or because this
Sure.
this is kind of like
we
more or
don't do
less,
that.
yeah, this is more
Yeah.
or less how we want to catch them or how we think that they should be caught. But all right, so Rowan, it's December now. Do you think you're going to be making it back out? And if you do, is it going to be back on the river? Is the Madison chain going to be open? What's the deal?
Well, it's my birthday next week, and historically, I've got a couple calendar dates that have always been pretty good to me. Halloween's one of them, and then my birthday. It seems like I always have a really good time, December 11th and 12th, and I'm kicking around a lot of ideas. I'm definitely going fishing this weekend. Me and Randy are going up to somewhere. I've after the lake today, I was kind of kicking around trying to get back out on a big lake, but I've got a couple big fish numbers on the river that I'm pretty pretty excited to go hit. So it's going to be a game time decision for sure. Probably Friday night leaving work, I'll be figuring out where I want to go. But I might even drive to like Ohio or something. I have not decided.
Sweet. So it seems like you got like a pretty good crew of dudes down there that all, are relatively younger and into this, muskie game with you. Are these guys that you met through muskie fishing, or are they guys that you grew up with, or just
Yeah,
connected with?
there's a small group. I'd say I've got a lot of friends in northern Wisconsin and a couple down here. A lot of them were through muskie fishing on the internet, just like I met you guys, posting
Mhm.
muskie pictures, talking in the DMs,
Just meeting guys
and
online.
meeting guys online, super safe, meeting a public place, behind the Walmart parking lot. But yeah, no, it is definitely tough to find younger dudes who want to go do crazy things like go muskie fishing at 2 in the morning. But yeah, I always get made fun of because all my friends are like 10 years older than me because they all, actually want to go fishing. But
I think it's awesome. I mean, that's like kind of part of the reason why we did this is to, get just keep kind of like building this community of younger anglers because, we're eventually going to be the future of it. So I don't know. I think it's a cool deal getting out with people that are all like-minded and makes it fun, So, I mean, we met you actually, I mean, not online. First time we met up at the Chippewa Flowage during the PMTT championships. You and your buddy Dara were out there just fishing for fun that weekend and had a lot of success. So I did want to touch a little bit in this interview on the Chippewa Flowage because it's still a little bit of enigma to Gus, Brian, and myself, even though Gus and I spent a grip of time out there trying to figure it out. But you were telling us in the boat that it's become kind of one of your favorite places to go and chase these things. You want to just kind of touch on why and maybe a little bit on how you guys have dialed in some sort of a game plan out there.
yeah, yeah, I grew up with a cabin 10 minutes from the Chippewa Flowage. We'd go bluegill fishing in James Slough all the time, and we muskie fished it a fair amount and didn't have a great bunch of success growing up. And I kind of wrote it off for years as just like, the place is huge and I can go to this little 200-acre lake and catch muskies every day and, whatever. But yeah, I got in the boat with Dara, and the first day that I was in the boat with him, in the first 5 hours, I popped like the heaviest 45-inch fish that I've ever had in like early July. It was an absolute toad. And yeah, it's so cool because it's such a big body of water and there are so many spots on it. It can be like daunting, but at the same time, there's muskies all over that place. Like every spot on the Chippewa Flowage that you think looks good has a muskie on it. And it's, any day they can be going on any bait, and you can dial in your own bite and then show up at the resort and be like, yeah, man, they only wanted to eat mag dogs today in the weeds, and you had to rip it at 100 miles an hour. And then the next guy will be like, yeah, I was just long stroking suics and getting them to go in 10 feet of water. It's a weird place. It is an enigma. I mean, and I think you guys saw it at the PMTT, where you don't see fish. You go like days without even getting a follow, and then they all go berserk in like 20 minutes, and you just catch 3 of them.
And you just better hope you're on them. Just like
Yeah.
hope you're in the right area when that lights up, feels like.
Something that Dara really drilled into my head was you gotta be good with side imaging, and assume that everything that you see that might be a muskie is a muskie, and really be able to pick up on those side imaging follows, because you get a ton of them that come in and they follow your bait for 20 feet and then they turn off. And if you can recognize those turn offs on side imaging, you can come back to them on a prime window and maybe get those fish to go. It's a lot of intuition out there, because you're not going to see fish. It's like, this spot looks good, I know there's a fish here, I'm going to pound it on the best windows and I'm going to catch one. And that's always how we've done it. We run and gun a lot because I'm fortunate enough to fish with a guy who's been fishing it for years and knows a bunch of good spots. And if we get one going on a specific pattern, this summer it was like, put the boat in 14 feet of water, cast at the weeds, throw rubber. And if you were doing that, you could not lose. And right before I caught that 45 incher, he hooked like a low 40s, and his exact words were like, oh, if that fish ate that bait here, there's going to be another one over here. And we drove like 5 miles and pulled up on the spot and just like, boom, got one. It was, yeah, it's wild. It's a cool fishery.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I definitely have a newfound respect for it after spending a full week up there. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. I know some people kind of dismiss it with, people. I think it does get, a good amount of pressure. I don't know if that's just because it is such a good fishery, or just kind of the history and nostalgia that comes with fishing the Chippewa flowage. Like, you say you're fishing the big chip, and people kind of just know, like they just know it. And it's a very identifiable body of water. But yeah, I felt like when we were out there, what you just said, like you didn't really see fish. Gus and I, like when we got there the first day, the first time we pre-fished it, it was like we couldn't not hook or see fish. And then all of a sudden we just went like, what was it, Gus? Four spots in a row with either hooking.
First 4, yeah.
First 4 spots. Never been there. Kind of like you were saying, we were just following our gut. We're like, that spot looks really cool. And we'd roll up and, hook a fish or see a fish or whatever, or that spot looks good. And then all of a sudden, like we touched on this a lot in our old podcast, so I don't need to kind of rehash it, but it's like all of a sudden, next thing you know, we just were going like spot after spot of like not seeing anything. And like confidence just started to, decline super fast. And yeah, I don't really know exactly where I'm going with this, but it just kind of shows like how brutal but awesome that fishery can be at the same time. Cause like you said, you can go days without seeing a fish, and then all of a sudden just like snap of the fingers, it just seems like they're going.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's a cool one. It's that the confidence thing is huge. Like, there's a spot that there's a fish on, you just got to keep coming back to it, even if you don't see them. There's a big one that I kept hitting the spot over and over again. Dara hooked one there early, and I kept going back to it and wasn't seeing fish. And then I hooked a real big one, and it ended up getting caught later at 47 inches. And you just got to trust your gut and go back to those spots that look good, because there's a fish there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you kind of touched on, not to totally change subjects here, but you might be fishing the trail next year, kind of a big time asterisk, maybe.
Yeah,
potential.
Maybe we're kicking around the idea. It would be pretty fun to get down. I just love the idea of fishing with so many good anglers. Just showing up to PMTT and fishing for fun that weekend. You know, you get so much intel from other dudes. We're watching the Facebook updates and everything, and it's like, oh, this guy's doing this. I didn't even think about doing that. That's a great idea. You know, it's you learn a lot from fishing with other good anglers. I think that's a huge thing to do, especially if you're new in the game. You got to get in the boat with just like make friends.
Yeah, I agree. Wouldn't you say, Gus, that it's definitely leveled us up just fishing tournaments and hearing about what other
Yeah.
people are doing? It's like we've talked to Clayton about this where, you know, on any given day, somebody's catching a fish. Like the tournament
Oh,
isn't going to
yeah.
blank. So,
Yeah,
you
everyone's
know,
got the same conditions and everyone goes and fish the same hours, and yeah, somebody's gonna come up with a fish or four.
or 3 or 4.
Yeah, in the span of like an hour, do just some crazy things that you would never think of. And maybe you're the one that does it, maybe you watch it happen, or maybe you're on Timbuktu, other side of the lake, and you're like, damn. And then you find it out though, and then maybe you go back there next time. Whereas, like we're going back to Cave, we're going back to Madison. Tonka's new for us. And then if all goes well, we're going to the home waters. So we're definitely going to be finding some stuff out. And there's stuff that's in the back of my mind from now fishing Cave once, Madison once, that like, oh, I want to go try that in case our bite doesn't work out from before or something like that. Because the conditions could be totally different.
They probably will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I don't think, I mean, you never know. Maybe we go back to Madison and we got to wear winter coats and bibs again, in early
Yeah.
June.
Yeah, I do love Madison. There are sneaky spots where, I was getting them to go in September this year. Everyone was fishing that like typical weed line stuff, casting over the weeds. And I was like way inside of everyone, like under docks kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so you can get on your own bite out there, but there's also just those community spots always produce in Madison. It's kind of awesome how many times you can pull up to Old Brick and just run a lap on the weed line, and there's always muskies there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seemed like that's what kind of some people were doing. Max and I saw that pre-fishing. I mean, people were already kind of fishing a little open water, maybe trolling a little water or a little open water. And we were, for a little bit, we weren't exactly sight fishing, but we kind of just like plopped up in the nastiest, dumbest looking stuff. And we like saw one or two and we're like, they're here too on the same day. I mean, yeah, it's just wild. That place is pretty crazy.
That's the other thing with Madison is there's at any given time it's like the flowage. There's 5 different bites going on. You'll talk to one guy that's catching them in open water. You're talking to another guy who's catching them on mid lake structure. You're talking to another guy who's catching them inside weed edge. There's a muskie on every piece of structure in that lake at any given time. It's just a matter of which ones are going the most.
Mm-hmm.
So would you bring your fly gear if you did fish the PMTT? Would you use any fly stuff?
I'd bring it. I don't think I wouldn't die on that hill for sure. But I think it would competitive advantage for sure if they're really going on it. But no, I don't. That would not be my first move. It's a great tactic, and it's also not the most effective way to catch muskies.
Well, is there, I mean, I guess I'm kind of showing my ignorance here, but I mean, is the hookup percentage shittier on fly gear than it is on conventional gear? I guess that would just be, is it same, better, worse?
Probably the same, maybe even a little bit better for me, just because I spent like 5 or 6 years going only throwing flies because I got so crack addicted to it. But the big thing is covering water. It's it takes longer to cast a fly rod. I can make 5 casts with a gear rod in the time that I can make 2 casts with a fly rod, and I can cast twice as far with a gear rod. So, and I can move the boat faster, and I can do the whole thing. I have to be casting off the right side of the boat with the fly rod on a lake. I have to have the wind going the right way. There's so many variables to that like in a competitive playing field, it's like it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
There's a day when the fly will trounce everyone else in the tournament, but I'm not gonna go out expecting that to happen.
I mean, I could see on like bigger bodies of water like a Madison or a Tonka, it's probably, even though they don't see it as much, it's like you were saying, there's probably just more elements and like covering water is more effective. But I don't know. I mean, I could see like in an Eagle River case, depending on how the bite is, if it's a harder bite up in Eagle River, that could be something that would be really interesting to try, because some of those spots you do have to be a little bit more tactical on how you approach them.
Yeah,
and you're not just kind of
too.
running and go cave too.
That's what I was
right?
gonna say. Cave.
Yeah.
As well.
I do the southern thing every spring, and they love flies down there. It's like the southern fish love glide baits. They love glide baits and jigs and weird stuff, pull baits and stuff like that. And flies are the perfect tool for that. And especially like springtime on cave when you get a ton of fish in one little area. If I can find 20 fish in a cove, like, yep, I'm gonna live there and throw a fly rod and I'm gonna catch them. But
Right.
that's not what I'm gonna bank on for sure.
Makes sense.
I have a question, but it might be a dead end, so I just want to check with you before I ask. Have you fly fished much in Minnesota at any of the big waters?
I did for like 20 minutes on a metro lake this past year. I did
Stuck
raise
so
one.
bad you got out of there?
It was blowing like 30 miles an hour. It was
Yeah.
really bad. I brought my fly rod to Mille Lacs and then was so overwhelmed with Mille Lacs as a whole that I was just like,
I was gonna say,
I
that
didn't
seems
even
like Mission
take-
Impossible.
Yeah, I had the same bulldog on my rod the entire week at Mille Lacs. It was just like, yeah, no, I don't even know what's going on. The place that I do it a lot that I think is like parallel to that is Green Bay. I love fly fishing on Green Bay. Those fish
Really?
love flies.
Wow, I didn't even know that. I'd never even thought about that as an option. Everybody just hucks a bucktail as far as they can.
Yeah, and it's a seasonal thing for sure. I go up there in the springtime, and that's my 50 on the fly was on Green Bay, and it's so awesome. We contact a million fish, and they love eating flies. It's pretty cool.
Do you fish them up the Fox River at all?
I haven't done the Fox actually. I always my buddy Phil, who I fish with up there, Phil Stodola, he is always like, you got to get it to the Fox when it's good. You got to get to the Fox when it's good. If you throw that fly in the Fox River, it's gonna get murdered. And then every year when I'm going up there, he's like, don't go to the Fox.
Is it like a week window where you got to be on the Fox?
Yeah, it gets really poopy out there. You get some
Yeah.
really gross algae blooms, and the clarity is bad, and that's pretty terrible for fly fishing.
Yeah.
It's not that the muskie can't find it, but my confidence goes so far down the drain when it's like an inch of visibility. So
Yeah, you're not making much noise. I do. Oh, it's interesting, Brian, you asked about the Minnesota stuff, because you reminded me, I did want to ask you about this, Rowan. You were telling us you took a trip up to Mille Lacs this fall with Dara, right?
Yep.
And was that your first time fishing Mille Lacs?
yeah, it was my first time on the big pond. It was daunting. We got stranded 10 miles from the
Oh yeah, tell the story. That shit was crazy.
yeah, we were taking turns napping on the front of the boat while we trolled and side imaged every reef on the south end of Mille Lacs. And I set up this ridiculous trolling line that was like 20 miles long. It was like, if we hit this reef and we go around, and then we can swing around this one. And I took my nap and I woke up, and we already had some boat problems that week. And yeah, I was trolling in Dara's boat, and all of a sudden every alarm went off. It was just like beeping at me and screaming, and I'm kicking them and throwing things at him. Like, wake up, your boat's dying. And he wakes up and turns his boat off because he thought it was an overheating alarm. And it didn't turn back on, the starting back bed. And we were
this
like,
isn't in the middle of summer either.
no, it's November on Mille Lacs. We're like, it's freezing cold. There's 5 other boats on the entire lake. And yeah, we were sitting there just like looking off into the abyss. And I was like,
Is this at night as well?
No, it was daytime. It was like
Okay.
noon, thank God. But I was like, you might as well just troll us closer to the resort so we can call the Coast Guard and get a tow in, because that's about where we're at. And Like it was probably 10, 20 minutes into drinking whiskey and trolling at a mile per hour that I saw a boat coming across the horizon. It's like, we have to flag this guy down. And we were standing there jumping and screaming, and he came over and we flagged down the only boat on the lake with a jump pack in his boat.
Jesus.
He jumped the boat and we drove all the way back to the boat ramp, and the boat died 15 feet from the ramp.
No way.
Yeah, it was something else. Then we plugged her in, and I went back out the next morning, and it was all good.
But the trip, like obviously outside of that scare, it sounded like you guys saw some fish but couldn't get any to commit that weekend.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we went 2 days without. Well, the first spot that we pulled up to, Dara was tinkering with baits and getting all excited, and I saw a spot on the map that said Tullaby, and I was like, I'm going to the Tullabies. And I drove right there and pulled up to a reef, and we took like 10 casts, and I was like, there's one. And he came into the eight and took off, and I was like, "Wow, this is easy. Like, oh, we're just gonna pull up to every reef, and there's gonna be muskies on it." And then we fished for 2 days straight and didn't see a single thing. And then yeah, I went out at we got some intel from one of the local guides up there, and it was interesting. He was like, "Yeah, I can't find tullabies anywhere, but there's muskies where there aren't tullaby." And I was like, "That's all I need to know." And I pulled up to a reef and was like, that looks like a muskie on side imaging. That looks like another one. And I stood up and chucked my ultra dog and hooked up on like the third cast, got a couple head shakes, and she popped off, and ran back to the hotel. Dara was working remote at the time. It was like, all right, end your business call. We got to go out. I found them. And we ran back out there and ended up hooking and losing three and moving another three or four. None of the ones we hooked were very big. There's two of them were like low 40s. One of them was big by Wisconsin standards, small by Mille Lacs standards, probably upper 40s, maybe 50. Ate a beaver up on top of the reef and swam at the boat. But but yeah, it was awesome. I would live there. When we were leaving Mille Lacs, I was like, oh, what I wouldn't give to have a month out here. This is the best fishery ever.
It's definitely on my bucket list to get up there some point in time. I was kind of hoping with like this recent pickup of like, seems like Mille Lacs is getting a little more traction over the past like 2 or 3 years. Like it felt like it was pretty dead for a while, and everyone was kind of saying, I don't know if it was just people kind of resting on their past laurels there or whatever, but it sounded like, no one really wanted to go fish it. And then it just feels like over the past few years, it's gotten talked about a lot more. And part of me was kind of thinking like, is the PMTT gonna maybe make a stop there? Because, like obviously they try to, it seems like they do a Minnesota stop every year, or at least try to, or most years they do. So I was kind of thinking like, well, they've been doing the Bemidji, they've been doing the, Leech. Are they going to ever make it back to Mille Lacs? Maybe in the future.
That'd be really sick. I think there is the muskie population is bouncing back out there for sure. There's definitely a lot of like low 40s, mid 40s inch fish out there. It's not the giant fishery like it used to be.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for Tonka. I was kind of like, oh, it's just a bunch of metro lakes and then cave. But then Tonka's exciting to me. I fished it a bunch this year. I haven't caught one out there yet, but we've contacted a ton of fish, and it's a cool body of water. It's like the Minnesota Chippewa flowage.
Yeah. with party boats and
enormous party boats.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how that one goes. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of weather dependent type, bites, or maybe even more just like the sanity part. If we can get a day like we had on Madison last year where Sunday all that shitty weather rolled in and like they're the only 90 boats that were on Monona and Waubesa were PMTT boats, and that was it.
Yep. That's what you got to cross your fingers for, because those 4-foot waves getting tossed off the party boats are not fun to fish in, for sure.
Yeah.
But
I was out there in a big pontoon boat. Yeah, right. Like that's just it. Is that some like there's gonna be fish caught, and then from what it
Yeah,
sounds like, there's a shit pile of big fish in that lake. So
there's a ton of fish. There's a ton of small ones too. It's just it's a great fishery. That's a booming Minnesota fishery in my opinion.
That's pretty good to hear. Will you be Rowan? Are you going to be in your boat or Dara's boat if you do the trail?
We're kind of kicking around both ideas.
Maybe switching.
Yeah, we're talking about my boat for cave,
Yeah,
and
that would be
then
sweet.
yeah, and then Eagle River too if we make it that far.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it will be in Dara's boat. But we're gonna take my waypoints, put my graph on Dara's boat for Madison probably.
Mm-hmm. Has he fished there before?
I think he may have. He might not have ever fished Madison. I've been trying to get him down all summer, but he just it's pretty easy to talk me into driving north, and it's not as easy to talk him into driving south.
I'm with Dara on that one.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, a lot of these Wisconsin fisheries in the south feel like are really picking up some steam though. I mean, they've done a good job stocking them with not only Wisconsin, river strain muskies and all that stuff, but also they've been starting to put in some Great Lakes spotted and some Leech Lakers and some of these fisheries.
yep.
And I think it's been kind of an interesting tactic, like watching how these fisheries have actually been able to survive with both strains. And I think there's probably a handful of lakes in northern Wisconsin. You could make the argument that, if a Monona or Waubesa can handle Leech Lakers and Wisconsin strain muskies coexisting, I could name a handful of northern Wisconsin lakes that I feel like could support that as well. And I'm talking from a little bit of a novice point of view, but I feel like that could be an interesting thing to introduce to
Bleachers
northern
on the
Wisconsin as
chain.
well.
Bleachers
Yeah,
on the
no,
chain.
no,
Yeah,
you'd
That'd be the
get
dead end.
so many petitions saying no
Just
way.
kidding. Just kidding.
yeah. There's definitely some lakes up there that don't have any muskies at all that I would love to see leechers in. There's some Cisco lakes that don't have any muskies, and it would just be so sick to have 55-inch leechers in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like shit, these northern Wisconsin Cisco lakes that do have muskies in them. I mean, we've seen how
That.
tough how
Oh,
fat they get, how
oh
big they
yeah.
get, but how tough they are to catch. And I mean, I
Yeah,
don't want to generalize, but I think it's kind of well known that leechers are a little bit easier to maybe fool than a
Like
Wisconsin. Am I gonna make people mad by saying that? But
they're
I
a
don't
little
know.
more likely to eat a long-stroked bulldog than Wisconsin fish are. Sure
Yeah,
seems like you can't just go rip rubber through the weeds in Minnesota and get them to bite. That's for sure. I
and
had
maybe we
this.
just suck. I don't know, but not Gus and you, but Brian and I, we've had a tough time on clear water. I know that.
Yeah. Oh, I have too. Those northern Wisconsin Cisco lakes, I love to fish them, but they just kick my ass every time.
Have you fished Geneva much?
That's one that I was just thinking it would be sick if the PMTT went there.
Yeah, I think it maybe in a couple of years once it gets a little bit more steam, but
Yeah, I fished it this spring. We had just an awful day out there, but that was one of the lakes that I was kicking around this weekend for my birthday, actually.
oh, nice.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe a big old Sisker send for the end of the year, but
what's the word been down by you on Geneva? Is it like a crown
there's
jewel yet or what?
there's definitely some wild rumors going around, and a lot of people being real hush hush about it, and then a couple guys kind of blew it up, and we're like, yeah, this fishing's awesome down here, and it's pretty awesome. I haven't experienced it, but I want to get down there again super bad. My boat is not conducive to that. I mean,
Yeah,
that is
I was gonna say, is it really hard of a lake to fish? Isn't it just super deep and clear and
it's
wide
huge. I
open?
mean, it's so big and wide open, and like yeah, it's a tough one. I remember looking at the map and just being like, yeah, I mean, I guess they're like that's where they should be, but that doesn't look like a musky spot. I don't know.
Well, like as we talked about in the boat on Saturday, like you could literally, give somebody a map of a big clear body of water, at least in northern Wisconsin, and be like, here's where the fish are. Go have fun if you want to go try to catch them, I guess. It's not always the easiest. I mean, there's certain times a year where I feel like if you're Gus and you're up there and fishing every day, you kind of get a little bit more dialed into like when you can actually access these fish. But yeah, it's they're tricky. It's a totally new element for sure.
Yeah, I love that clear water because you can see everything. But yeah, those fish are not friendly. Super not friendly.
Yeah, I'm sure they also like it for the same reason. They see the boat and they're like, yeah, nope, never mind.
No,
Yeah.
pass. The first like 10 casts that I took in a Cisco Lake in northern Wisconsin, I had a mid 40s up that was just white hot. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I love this. I'm going here every day and I'm going to pummel them. And I have never caught a muskie on that lake. Like,
That's
terrible.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding out it's not easy. Growing up mainly fishing more stained waters and last 2 to 3 years branching out to clear water, and it's like, oh boy, this is a different animal, and figuring out when and where. I mean, it seems like November's not a bad time to go for sure to these fisheries because Cisco spawn and all that, but that's why we were toying around with the oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was talking about this with you, Gus, that getting out there early, like in the springtime, and finding where they spawn always kind of gets me on track to follow them for the rest of the year. It's like, oh, if I can identify where they're going to spawn, then I can be like, all right, well, if they spawn here, they're probably not going to go that far. They're going to go over to this main like reef or point or whatever in the summer. And yeah, actually the best time that I've had fishing Cisco lakes up north, not that I've had a ton of success, is like August, September. Like when everyone else is catching them in the weeds on those stained lakes. They're doing like the same stuff on the Cisco lakes. Maybe not quite as like stupid shallow and sloppy. But we contacted that first day that I was out there when I had that sweet fish up on that Cisco lake. It was like August 23rd or something. And yeah, we had like 6 fish up that day. One of them was low 50s, and then the next day it was storming in the morning and all cloudy and moody and like one of those classic August cold fronts. And we went right back on that huge fish, and I threw a fly at her and she ate it. And I just biffed it, like super biffed it.
Oh no.
Yeah, and yeah, so I'm intrigued. I didn't do it this year. I went out once, and actually I went out once and I went 0 for 3. So that August September time frame is kind of intrigues me for those clear lakes up there.
Was that throwing like some big rubber, or did you incorporate blades into any of that?
I was doing a combo. There was rubber with blades on it.
Yeah, there you go.
But I was throwing the one that got eaten that day. 2 baits got eaten that day. I had a boo tube with the Colorado blade on the back, and then a reg Medusa with a small Colorado blade off the back hook hanger, which was
Nice.
total random
Mod.
move.
Mod.
The mod's out.
Yeah, tweaking,
Yeah.
fiddling. But yeah, no, that was an open water day. I was telling you boys about that when I saw Jensen out there. I side imaged all my good spots and didn't find anything and drove across the base and was like, oh, there they are. And then I pulled back to that spot after I had checked a couple others and Steve Jensen sitting there with clients. And I was like, oh, yeah, I did find them.
Probably know you're on a good pattern if you see him pull up to your spot that you like.
Yeah. And yeah, I hooked one right there after he left. So
As like it's always good to see like a little validation when you're like fishing a new body of water and then you see a guy like that. And I joked around with Gus when we were fishing the Chippewa flowage. I was like, something kind of funny is Ty and Tate Sennin haven't popped by any of the spots we've fished over the past 2 days.
Yeah, I haven't seen them yet.
I haven't really seen those guys too much. And
only at the starting line.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's hard to see Ty and Tate though because they're always going 70 miles an hour.
Yeah. And their jet, the Batmobile or whatever they got.
Yeah.
Old Black Lund.
When we
It's
took off,
intimidating to see that thing coming across the lake at like sunset. I experienced that firsthand. I was like, are these boys gonna hit us?
I mean, imagine taking off in a PMTT tournament and they're just literally in your prop wash.
Trying to get around you right away.
90 horse tiller.
A great metaphor for that weekend. Like they were legitimately just running us down.
Last person I'd ever want to fish against in any tournament. Those boys are something else.
Yeah, that was probably one of the, I mean, we've talked about it, but that was one of the cooler things to see on that type of body of water. A guy dialing a bite like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool to see. It was awesome to see him win on home waters like that. Not that I wasn't rooting for you boys, but he definitely earned that one. He really shined in that moment.
Yeah, that was cool. And I think the cool thing, I mean, just for this podcast and us being up in northern Wisconsin, it's like the stage should be set for a very similar type deal next year if certain teams make that championship, because there's a handful of people that fish the trail that have Eagle River kind of Three Lakes areas like their home water, and if those teams make it, it'll be very interesting to kind of see how it plays out, because that's a body of water where a guy from Kentucky that makes a championship could go up there and just crush it, or it could be somebody that is near and dear to that body of water that is dialed in. It just, I don't know. I think it'll be a fun championship venue for sure.
Yeah, I think that also those home bodies of water are also the easiest place to choke.
Oh,
yeah. When I saw that Madison was back on the docket, I was like, no. Oh man, I'm gonna roll out there and I'm not even gonna see one.
Why do you think that is?
I think you just get in your head. You overthink it. It's like they should be doing this. They should be doing it. You just got to go. Like today, when I was out on the Madison chain, I fished spots that I've never fished before, and I actually had some success. And it was a little refreshing because I do go pound the same spots that I always fish. And I went and checked those spots, and I didn't see anything. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna fall into that trap today. And it kind of worked. But yeah, you just got to go out there every day and fish it like you're fishing a new body of water.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about the reluctancy to change when you're on your home body of water. I mean, Brian and I saw that fishing a local tournament this summer that we're going to get some redemption on next year. I think Brian and I are going to team up again for that tournament. I was telling Gus, I was like, if we all have that weekend open again, I'm like, Brian and I are taking out the old 16-foot Ranger and we're going to hit it again. Gus is going to have to go find another partner because Brian and I need a little redemption on that.
If we get number one boat in the running order too, man, that's going to be classic.
I hope I get number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're chucking 3 lakes over. The tournament started at 7. I don't think we had baits in the water until 7:45 every day.
Drive as far as you can from the starting point.
Yeah. That might have been our I don't think we were too strategic during that weekend and probably came back to bite us a little bit. But,
the best way to go muskie fishing is to be as not strategic as possible.
Yeah. We were
make his mark and throw things at things.
Yeah. We were just dialed in on going back to our A1 spots 3 lakes over. I think next year we just peel off to a random shoreline. I mean, we can't have worse luck than last year. So,
yeah, I'm down. Maybe just go fish like one of the lakes that we've spent 3 minutes on and go around and pitch at docks. I mean, I know you'd be in your happy place. If
post up on Voyager. It's a nice little wave pool.
My PMTP tactic is just go fish every boat ramp on every lake.
You might be onto something there, man. Mm-hmm. All right, well, boys, anything else you want to ask Rowan while we have him? He's been very very generous with his time. I've noticed that. Have you gotten through any of those bush lights over there? I can't tell which one's 1, 2, or 3.
I haven't touched the bush. I've really been enjoying the Maker's Mark over here.
There you go. Yeah, you got to let those bush lights heat up a little bit.
Yeah, they're better when they taste like pee.
All right, Gus, Brian, you got anything?
That's it on my end.
Yeah, I think that's it. So, yeah, Rowan, thank you so much for hopping on the pod tonight. We had a blast chopping it up. Some super educational stuff, some a little out there.
Pull off the rails.
I hope the listeners really enjoyed this one because I had a blast doing this one. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast. And thanks for coming down and fishing with me this weekend.
Yeah, we'll have to get you up to Vilas County next summer. We do typically in the last few years we've done a muskie bender. We call them weekends twice. I mean, hopefully we'll be able to do that again. We tossed around some ideas. We got like a group of like 6 or 7 dudes. Would be fun to kind of add to it and see where it goes. And the whole purpose of it is to kind of go and explore and try to fish some new waters in Vilas County. And with the idea, I guess, is like to have that many people doing it that eventually somebody's going to kind of figure something out and share information. So if we could add another boat to that.
Yeah, me and D-Rob will come up.
Hell yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. That would be a lot of fun to do that. And we've also kicked around the idea of doing the fall one potentially and on the Chippewa flowage as well. So
that would be sick.
Ooh, yeah.
That'd be a dream.
All right, man. Well, yeah, it was a real pleasure. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks, boys.
You wanna drop your info, your guide info for how people can get in touch with you and book a trip as well?
Yeah, I probably should do that. Rowan Stamm on Facebook and Instagram, always probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then you can always text or call 608-381-5524. If you call me, I probably won't answer, but if you leave a message, I'll call you back.
Sweet. Thank you so much for coming on, and look forward to speaking with you again. Hopefully see you at the show season and yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was an awesome interview. Had a blast chatting with Rowan. Some pretty good little nuggets in there on top of, some just good old fashioned muskie chop. Brian, I'll start with you tonight on what we learned from Rowan and the interview. What was your biggest takeaway?
Probably that Rowan liked to be a giant muskie that just crushes ducks in front of people. A little bit jealous of that. I'd love to do that as well. But no, I'd love to continue to talk to him about fly fishing tactics. I'd like to get out and fish with him on the fly. What is that? What's that fly called, Gus? The pig or whatever?
The river pig.
River pig, yeah.
River
pig.
Yeah.
I think I've seen those, but I've never. I mean, I don't have one. I just have a bunch of like glide bait type flies. So might be something I look into if we start fly fishing more next year.
Yeah, it looked like it seemed like it went really well with some sort of medium sink line like he was talking about, and it had that little like 45 bend in the hook eye. So the hook always rides up, which is why it's good to drag low. And it was relatively easy. I mean, I snagged with it for sure when I was using it, but I was keeping it deep and everything like that. And it was easy to, take out of the snags.
How long was it?
The fly?
Yeah.
Probably about a foot or so. It was probably 10 to 14
That's
inch
a big fly. Jeez.
Yeah, 10, 12, I'd say probably. I could be kind of forgetting. I think you can make them different sizes. I'm not sure if there's a specific one size fits all river pig fly. I'm sure the original is a certain size, but yeah, that's a good one.
Sweet.
Gus, what was your biggest takeaway?
Combined with just fishing with Rowan in general, I learned a lot about rivers and like spots that they sit, a little bit about current, the fact that he really likes to it seems like he really relies on side image and side image only for the most part. Like he likes to just go through some of the holes or some of the sections near a lot of wood or some like rock gravel areas and just side image out suckers. Like he's looking for schools of suckers. Like that's the big thing. I mean, like I said, when we're fishing down down south, we had all that shad and stuff too. We are trying to fish through that. I mean, there's times where I was casting, and every other cast I was snagging shad. I could like feel my lure just like pumping through just giant schools, and
That's insane.
I'm like, this has got to trigger one, but at the same time, like these dumb things are belly on the bottom and not moving. It's
Full
33-degree water that's past full moon, not even to new moon yet. And yeah, I learned that rivers are dope, and we definitely have to fish rivers more, and at some point get some sort of cool river boat. That's going to be way down the line, but that's the other thing, is you kind of need a rig to get into some of these types rivers, north and south, and even in like the eastern, if you want to just go fish Kentucky or Ohio or something like that, you probably need like a jet boat, jet
Yeah,
engine,
what
flat
about
bottom.
what about selling your Ranger engine and getting just an old jet engine?
That would be a good idea.
Brian.
Brian, what you on
Brian?
tonight?
Hey, oh,
Every once in a while.
every once in a while.
All right, Max, what did you learn tonight with Rowan?
I would say not as much what I learned, but my takeaway that I appreciated the most was just another young dude that's just like obsessed with muskie fishing.
Right on.
Been guiding for a few years, been fishing since he was a kid, is willing to kind of do these, crazy weekend trips and drive all around the state of Wisconsin and into Minnesota and everywhere else to chase these things and learning new water. And I think just meeting people like that feel like kind of gets you fired up, and just meeting like-minded people is awesome. All right, so Gus, you winterized the boat before you headed down to Madison. Your guide season is over. Congratulations on a fantastic year. However, one last highlight of the season happened for you last weekend. Talk us through it, because this fish got a lot of good pub on the old socials. I know it was a big fish, as far as it was a big fish for you, as far as something you wanted to accomplish this year. You set out to it, you grinded your ass off this November, and you got it done on the, second to last day of your season. So let's hear about it, man. Talk us through it.
Yeah, thank you. The season was amazing, and I mean, I couldn't ask for a better way to end it. And first off, for sure, I want to just say this to all the people that have reached out to me for me posting that fish. Was truly incredible, just seeing all the support from you guys, and that was just really cool to see. And I'm kind of at a loss of words for that. I wasn't really expecting that. I also wasn't expecting that fish. I mean, like, I half was been, expecting to, hopefully run into a big one this fall. And at the same time, I was just like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It can't happen every year. Maybe 2 years in a row in November, just can't find a pig. And then all of a sudden, one year we get back into one. But that was a truly special fish, because I was able to spend that time with Dad in the boat. And he's really been a big time trooper. He's been out a lot this fall with me, and we've been trying some comfort bites, getting some fish to go, losing some fish here and there. And then there's some times where I'm kind of taking them out on some wild goose chases, some, hunches, as they like to call them. And that's tough when it's 35 degrees and he's got to bundle up, and, tackling these quote unquote hunches. It's kind of tough to do that in, a 3-hour window or something like that. Days are short. Maybe you don't want to get out for the whole day. It's cold. It's tough to get out there before it's, gets above freezing. But yeah, definitely just want to say that first, is that he is an absolute trooper. And I'm just really excited that he was there to not only just help me net it. That would have been a shit show if it was on my own, if that happened on my own. And, but just to be there in general, it was a truly special moment. But
Super cool.
yeah, we went to a lake that I've had on my radar, and it was one of those lakes that I've never musky fished it, but I have the asterisk on that is I've driven my boat on it and prior to the season opener, and I brought some, bass and walleye rods. I didn't have any luck doing that. I saw, a couple bass in the shallow water, but they didn't want to eat. But I was just super intrigued by the lake right away. I'm like, this is a really cool lake. I could see us definitely coming back, and tick, tick, tick. We went through May, June, July, August, September, October. Still never made it back to that lake. And it just dawned on me that it's like, oh, there should be some Cisco's popping just as, XYZ lake, all these other lakes. I'm like, let's just go try it. I still don't, all my knowledge there was just driving around the lake, 1.5 times, and that's pretty much it. And we rolled up to just troll and troll only and just cover ground and kind of just look for some key structures and find the bait. And we had no troubles finding the bait right away. And there was, Cisco pods and pods of various other baits that were probably perch or something like that out there in the open water a little bit, and some close to the break lines. And through the afternoon, we didn't get out there until like 1 or so, I think 12:45, 1. And I think we side imaged 3, hazy marks that, or maybe 4. 3 of them were more relatively in the same area. 1 was way on the other side of the lake when we were kind of going over there, and we didn't get anything to go. It was bright and sunny, fairly windy, but there wasn't very much for cloud cover in the clear water. Always, makes me skeptical on a bite. Man, the sun dipped on that tree line, and we noticed the bait was getting tighter to the break lines. The Cisco's actually started popping on the surface, doing a couple dolphin dives out there. You could see them in like our prop wash, like jumping behind our lines, which is pretty wild. And it started to get cold real fast. It was above freezing that day, but sun just touched the tree line and it dropped below freezing for sure. And I was cold. I didn't even ask Dad how cold I'm sure he was probably a little bit cold and
Freezing.
And just being a trooper and not saying anything and letting me just do my thing, I guess. And I really wanted to call it at like 4 to 4:10 or so, because nothing was happening. I mean, we side imaged those fish relatively early and just nothing out in deeper water too, still close to the break lines. And I'm like, let's just run this last shoreline. Why not? It's, we'll pass 2 of the 4 marks that we waypointed. And I'm like, the Cisco's are popping on the surface, so screw it. Let's just get the baits up like stupid high, like compared to what we've been running like 10, 12, 15 feet down. Like, let's just put them up to like 5, 6 feet down or something like that, and just run as close as I can to the break line without getting junk on the baits. And I got junk on the baits a few times, had to clear the inside rod off. And as we're legitimately approaching the last waypoint, maybe if we didn't catch a fish there, I would have went 50 yards past it and been like, all right, we're done. I kind of make a wrong turn into it and realize I'm going right up into shallow water. Like, we're in just a little deeper water and we just go right up into it. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And I was trying to kind of like pull away, and I'm like, I think, quote unquote, I didn't post the video yet. Maybe I will by the time this comes out, but I want to post that head cam footage of the catch. I'm like, hopefully that's a muskie, or I think that I say something like, that's a muskie. I'm like, I hope it eats before we, the baits ram into these weeds and we're just like screwed. We're done. And the rod behind me goes off. I kind of barely hear it because I got a lot of layers on and hood up and stuff. And I go to grab it and feels pretty good, I guess I'd say. I don't know. I mean, it had some pretty big head shakes to start. I didn't really think anything of it. The mark didn't look anything crazy on side image because I think I was spanning out, fairly far, and it just looked like a normal musky mark. And then when I got close to the boat, it dove under the engine a little bit, did a nice little run down there, and I was on the the old Abu round reel, 15-year-old 6,500 on a medium heavy rod with 30-pound mono and a homemade wire leader, and crushing a freaking 8-inch jointed depth raider, the old classic perch color.
Shout out Book.
Shout out Book Daddy for making just a freaking killer trolling lure. That thing has been money. And I know before that, Dad was joking around. He's like, should we just run 2 depth raiders? I'm like, nah, we got to get out like a Grandma or a Jake or something like that.
Yeah, get one of the expensive ones, get your money's worth.
Yeah, maybe throw out like, a Matlock or
Yeah,
maybe like one of the candies that I got or something like that. It's like, we got to give those a try too. But no, I ate the jointed plastic depth raider, crushed it, had it T-boned. And that's when I saw that I had T-boned. I think that was the first words out of my mouth before big fish was like, oh, it's got a T-boned. And I say big fish or whatever, because it's on the surface now thrashing, and dummy cold water. So that thing is kind of like slow motion thrashing, and I can kind of horse it, and told Dad to get the net in the water. And I just kind of dragged it right in, and it acted like a big docile fish for a second there, thankfully.
The video is crazy. It's how like the fish is like going in slow-mo when it's head shaking.
So it's like doo, doo, and then it would kind of swim and doo, doo. And it was just really cool. And
any little girl scream for the celebration?
There was a nice little holy shit. I knew you would catch your PV tonight from Dad. And I'm just like, oh, that's big. I'm like, that's really big. I don't no girls screaming. I was more in shock and cold.
Yeah, you guys both looked like you're like, did that just like you guys both like your head cam panned over Dad, and he's just looking at you like, does that just happen?
Yeah, it's like, what? There's just
you've been on like you've been on like your Tom Gelb shit lately. I mean, you've had some good days this November, but like we've been pretty transparent about it. It's been tough on a lot of days, especially as the season's gotten, especially as it's kind of gotten into this end of the part of the year. And so like, I mean, you had days upon days before you got that bite, like the one you were really looking for.
Oh yeah, and we got good fish this November and October. I mean, we got some low 40s and a couple in the mid 40s, but that upper 40s just never really showed herself. I mean, I think we got a few to move early October, but once the fish stop following, it's either they bite or they don't, and all the bites have been just not that one. So that's why that's where the shock value comes from on like what. And
so how are you feeling with the new PB?
I just feel I don't know.
Relieved.
Yeah, well, I think I said in my caption like I can finally sleep this winter, because I've just been going days with nothing and then losing some fish this November, and I'm like, does it have
That'd
to
been your
end
villain
this
arc
way?
going into next year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would be. Yeah,
Stay
y'all
out the
better watch
way.
out if that now that fish is like, what does our buddy Jack like to say? Now we're just fishing for fun now.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
And now you can just chill next year.
I'm just kidding. That is not. I'm gonna be fishing just as hard to get that feeling again for sure. But
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Is that thing are you waiting on the mount, or is that one getting the mount?
That'd be a cool one to have. I don't know. Biggest trolling fish, PB of right now, just a thick November fish full of
that was fat as hell.
Full of food. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that would be a cool one for sure. It would be cool to start getting mounts.
We
don't have any mounts
so hard
or
to,
anything.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to get one in there, but it's so hard to like decide what fish is like a worthy mount. Cause like you always just think like, I might catch a bigger one next year. You never know. And then I'm gonna want to mount that.
Yeah, I know.
It's a
I
tough
hear
game.
you there. That is tough. I mean, I don't know. I just like, yeah.
I think you put in enough work for that to be a mountable fish.
But the effort and the story helps, on a fish as well. Because maybe it's not. I mean, obviously, it's not the freaking biggest fish ever, but it's my biggest ever, and it's a jumbo. I mean, it was hard to hold. I couldn't feel it. My hands were about to fall off. If you look in the for those who are still listening this far into the podcast, if you look at the picture, my my left hand, the one holding the belly, my knuckles are white from lack of
The
blood
poop
flow.
slushy.
No, lack of blood flow. Those hands were so numb because I had to get the lure out of its mouth. I had it T-boned, and Dad was in there with the
Oh,
jaw
that's not.
spreaders.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
No, that's just straight up. That's white knuckling it right there.
Dang.
Yeah, it's a little scary
Wow.
because it had me cut up a little bit and I couldn't feel it. And after I released it, there's kind of like I saw blood dots on just the most random spots of the boat. I'm like, who's bleeding? I'm like, oh, it's me. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
that's a hell of a way to cap off a great season for you.
thanks, man. Yeah. Again, truly
That's
appreciate
awesome.
all the message, the messages from everybody, and truly thankful in that one, big time. And it's only going to make me hungrier to get a bigger one. It's going to be tough to
Yep.
beat that weight. Hopefully I can beat the length, but the weight is going to be tough to beat because that was a big girl.
And I think in more important news, it kicked somebody off the biggest fish board.
Yeah, Brian, not in the top
Brian, you got
three
anything to say
anymore.
about that?
Hey, I'm happy it was Gus. I'm happy he earned it.
Couldn't have a better guy.
Couldn't have a better guy, better fisherman. Yeah, but I'm just saying, it ain't gonna be pretty next year. You already know I'm coming for that.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
Sure.
if you're you have two fish that are in the top three. For all the people, I guess I should have explained. We run a pretty we had a big chalkboard of like everything we had going on every year, and we've taken pictures for the last like 5 or 6 years, and so it's kind of cool to track everything. But we have a top three biggest muskie spot that's kind of out in the open that everyone that walks in the cabin sees. So we put some pressure on us being on that board, and it's just a damn shame to see an angler like Brian fall off that number 3 spot. And just damn shame. And I feel bad. You've lived on that board for the last few years, and it's going to be tough. I know.
I just got complacent. Really, that's all that was.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
He might be the top. I mean, if we give him top water, front of the boat, July new moon for 3 nights in a row, he might have all 3 top
over.
spots.
It's over.
I mean,
yeah, shit ain't sweet then.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, yeah, that's gonna be how the board will end for the year. Yeah, no, man, super pumped for you to have that be the way that this season ended. It seems a little bit too storybook, I think we kind of both were like, yeah, it's been a great year. If we don't get that big fall one, it is what it is. And you're able to pull it out at the 12th hour, which is something apparently seems like you like to do. So
yeah, there's so many.
Hey, what you mean?
I'm just saying, it's just Gus got a knack for catching fish right before, either it sounds like a tournament, trip, whatever, long day, it seems like Gus is always able to grind them out.
Yeah, putting in some of those hours this November into dark, I guess paid off finally. We had a lot of into dark trips this November. I'm like, what the hell am I doing out here right now? It just got dead. But yeah, I'm just very, very thankful about that, and everyone out there, reaching out, sorry to bring it up again, but I just really, really thankful on that. And then, the next day I was able to get in touch with Cletus, with Catching with Cletus. He runs a guide service up here in Vilas County. We're definitely going to get him on the podcast, but he's like, hey, you want to come up fishing? A truck doesn't really work, but I got a boat. And I'm like, well, I got a truck and my boat is messy and frozen. So it worked out really perfectly. Actually, the last day up here, got to fish with him and caught one last fish casting, which is pretty dope. Got above freezing and I was able to cast and got one on a tube. Just a wee little guy, but that was fun. But yeah, that's a wrap on the season. I'm opening up the books for 2024. And if you want to reach out to me or to book a trip or to get some merch that's left before the holidays, you can reach me at www.cpmc sugsfishing.com. And also find me and the boys on Instagram at Muskies on Tap and at Sugs Fishing. We'll be pumping out a good amount of content hopefully this winter. We got some video footage to go over and little tidbits here and there to put out, and so hopefully everybody enjoys that as we kind of get those out there here and there. And yeah, I think that does it. But you guys got anything else to add?
Yeah, Gus, hold on. We gotta talk about one more thing real quick. If anybody is still listening to this podcast by now, I do want to, touch on something a little bit near and dear to our hearts here in Wisconsin. That's the goddamn Green Bay Packers. Brian, will you apologize for your lack of faith in the Green Bay Packers front office? Because I think we got ourselves a squad going for it here.
It is crazy how 1 week can change the minds of everyone.
3 weeks.
No, I have not seen this level of brilliant play calling from head coach Matt LaFleur at all this season until that game. I was thoroughly impressed, right? I was knocked back my seat for most of that game. I could not believe it. He let Jordan Love air it out. Jordan Love looked like a 10-year vet. I just can't say enough great things about this football team. And I will say with the schedule that they have coming up, it'd be a damn shame if they don't win this division. It'd be a damn shame.
As a known Packer hater, I'm a
critic. I'm not a hater. I'm a critic.
All right. As a known Packer hater, would you say that watching them succeed is tough for you to see, or do you feel any sort of enjoyment watching these young
No,
men?
I'm not I'm a Packer fan. I'm just a critic when you got all these brainwashed diehard Packer fans trying to say that there's never been a wrong decision made in franchise history. Right? I'm here to shine some light when they do something wrong, make a dumb decision. So no, I was very happy watching them. I'm excited to see what they do in the coming weeks. And what they looked like last night is a team that can win a playoff game. And I did not think that 2-3 weeks ago.
That's all I needed to hear. I know I'm not going to get an apology out of you. It's not your thing, but that's what I needed to hear.
What do I need to apologize for? What? I'm not gonna pat Newquist on the back and tell he did a great job and they look like the worst team in the league. I'm not that kind of Packer fan.
And Brian, real quick, since you're a residential college football expert, self-proclaimed, what are your thoughts on Florida State getting the boot out of the playoffs, being an undefeated squad?
I've spent a lot of time and thought about this here. And I put myself in their shoes. I thought, if my Buckeyes were in that position and my QB went down,
your Buckeyes,
which they were about 7 years ago, or
coach
9 years ago.
Did you coach the Buckeyes before?
Now. And my Buckeyes went on to win the national championship in 2014 with the third string QB. I like to think that Florida State and their fans are clearly thinking that their roster is solid enough to compete with anybody in the country.
Are you coach?
They should be in.
Have you ever coached football?
And that is a valid argument, but the Alabama Crimson Tide would roll.
Dude, nobody's going to
play
listen
next
to you
weekend. The committee got it right. They got the 4 best teams in the country.